Picture the ancient Roman frontier, just the dust, the heavy tread of occupying legions, the crushing weight of imperial taxation,
Right.
and just this constant suffocating threat of sudden violence. Like, that is the actual world we are stepping into today. Because, well, when we usually encounter the story of Matthew chapter 2, it's practically encased in glass.
Oh, completely. Yeah.
Like one of those holiday snow globes. You shake it up and the glitter falls perfectly over this quiet, peaceful little town.
Very picturesque.
Right. There's a glowing star, some friendly travelers in colorful robes, a sleeping baby. It feels safe. It feels entirely sanitized.
Well, it has been culturally smoothed over for centuries, really. The sharp edges of the historical record have been totally sanded down for public consumption, turning what was actually a pretty terrifying sequence of events into, a comfortable winter greeting card.
But then you read the text itself, and today we were diving deep into Matthew's account, and suddenly that snow globe just shatters.
Yeah, it really does.
You aren't looking at a peaceful pastoral scene anymore. You are looking at a deeply paranoid tyrant holding onto power by his fingernails.
Right.
A vulnerable child. These elite foreign mystics operating in the shadows, and a harrowing midnight escape. I mean, it is incredibly murky, high stakes, and violent.
It is the absolute definition of an ancient geopolitical thriller.
Exactly.
The tension in this text is just palpable from the very first sentence, provided you understand the political powder keg that the ancient Middle East actually was during the Roman era.
Right. So welcome to today's deep dive. Whether you are a history buff who loves dissecting the mechanics of the ancient Roman Empire, or you're just insanely curious about how familiar stories look under a rigorous historical microscope, we have a mission today.
Yes, we do.
We are going to strip away that peaceful holiday imagery.
Yeah.
You're going to read this text for what it actually is, A raw, terrifying historical drama about power vacuums, political espionage, and survival in the ancient world.
Because to understand the sheer terror that erupts in this narrative, we really have to start with the inciting incident.
Right, the spark.
Exactly. The chaos doesn't just spontaneously happen. It is triggered by an unexpected and frankly alarming arrival in the capital city of Jerusalem.
The arrival of the Magi.
Yes.
Which, in the popular imagination, these are just three wise men quietly following a star on the backs of a few camels. But the historical record describes something completely different.
Utterly different, yeah.
It tells us these Magi were elite Persian or Babylonian astrologers. So, I mean, who exactly were these guys in the context of the ancient world?
Well, in that era, they were not just stargazing hobbyists or wandering philosophers.
Right.
They were highly educated counselors, real political power players. In the Eastern empires, like Parthia or Babylon, figures like the Magi often acted as literal kingmakers.
Wow, kingmaker.
Yeah. They were part of the upper echelons of the royal court, responsible for reading the signs of the times and legitimizing rulers. Their presence carried immense diplomatic and political weight.
Because they represented a massive rival empire to the east of Rome.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine for a second a powerful, elite, foreign diplomatic delegation walking directly into a modern capital city today.
Just strolling in.
Yeah. Let's say they march right past the current ruler's heavily guarded palace, get to the center of town, and loudly ask, "Hey, where is the real new leader who was just born?"
Right, completely ignoring the guy currently sitting in the Oval Office or on the throne.
Totally ignoring him. And that's essentially what Matthew 2.2 describes. They walk into Jerusalem and ask, "Where's the one who has been born King of the Jews?"
What's fascinating here is the absolute audacity of that question.
That's crazy.
They aren't asking if a king has been born. They're stating it as an established cosmic fact.
Yeah.
They declare, "We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." And they are dropping this geopolitical bombshell inside the capital city of the man who currently holds the official Roman title, King of the Jews.
Which brings us to the man occupying that throne.
King Herod the Great.
King Herod. And this is where the political tension of the era really turns this situation into a lethal crisis.
Yeah.
Because Herod isn't just a secure monarch who is going to brush off a question like that.
Oh, far from it. Herod's entire grip on power was incredibly fragile.
Right.
To understand how his power worked, you have to look at the mechanism of a Roman client king.
Mm-hmm.
He only ruled because the Roman Empire allowed him to.
He's basically a middleman.
Essentially, yes. Acting as a buffer state between Rome and the Eastern empires where these Magi just came from. But more importantly to the local population, Herod was Idumean.
Now, I've seen that term Idumean thrown around, but what does that actually mean for his day-to-day rule?
It means he was an Edomite. His ancestors were forcefully converted to Judaism.
Oh, yeah.
So by the strict purity standards of the Jewish populace at the time, he was an outsider. He was not ethnically Jewish, and he certainly wasn't from the royal line of David.
Right.
Because of that, his legitimacy was widely rejected by the people he was trying to rule.
They hated him.
They viewed him as a usurper, essentially a half-breed puppet installed by an occupying imperial force to collect taxes and keep them subdued. So you have a ruler who knows his own people utterly despise him.
And he tries to fix that massive unpopularity with PR, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like the text notes his massive architectural projects. He built palaces, fortresses, and most famously, he funded the massive renovations of the temple in Jerusalem.
Right.
It feels like a modern politician cutting ribbons on giant infrastructure projects,
Yeah.
just hoping the citizens forget about the heavy Roman taxation that is actively crushing them.
It was classic political misdirection. He wanted to be seen as a great benefactor.
Sure.
But pouring money into marble and gold didn't cure his deep-seated insecurities. Herod lived in a state of constant, suffocating paranoia.
Yeah.
We know from historical records that his paranoia was so severe he executed his own wife, Mary and heir,
Wow.
and several of his own sons just because he suspected they might be a threat to his throne. This is a man who solves political problems with the sword.
That context makes Matthew 2.3 so much more intense. There's a reaction in that specific verse that really caught my eye. It says, "When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him."
Yeah.
Now, if you just read that casually, you might think the city is loyal and worried about their king.
Yeah.
But given what you just said about how much they hated him, why was the whole city terrified if only Herod's throne was threatened?
What's fascinating here is that reaction exposes the grim reality of life under a tyrant.
Yeah.
The city wasn't disturbed because they were worried for Herod. They were disturbed because they were terrified of him.
Right.
The people of Jerusalem intimately knew his violent tendencies. The logic of the street was simple and terrifying. If the paranoid king felt threatened, blood was going to spill.
Wow.
The entire city's life was suddenly in danger because an insecure, heavily armed dictator had just been triggered by foreign diplomats.
It's the old saying, when the king sneezes, the whole city catches a cold.
Exactly.
But in this historical context, the cold is a lethal political purge.
That is the exact environment. And because Herod is Idumean and not steeped in the deep theological traditions of the Jewish people, he doesn't actually know the ancient prophecies.
Oh, right.
He lacks the internalized knowledge of the local scriptures, so he has to outsource his intelligence gathering. He summons the local religious elites to his palace.
The text mentions he calls together the chief priests and the scribes. Who are we talking about here? Are these like the Pharisees and the Sadducees?
Yes, these are the factions that make up the religious and political aristocracy of Jerusalem.
Okay.
The Pharisees were the popular purists, deeply focused on the law, while the Sadducees were the aristocratic elites who largely controlled the temple operations.
Right.
Despite their theological differences, both groups had to navigate a very fragile, compromised existence under Herod's rule to maintain their power and influence.
So Herod hauls these experts in and demands to know where this prophesied Christ is supposed to be born. And this leads to one of the most staggering contrasts in the entire narrative.
It really does.
Because these religious experts know the answer immediately. They quote the ancient prophecy perfectly. They point to Micah 5.2, which pinpoints Bethlehem as the city of David.
And we should clarify the geography here.
Yeah, please.
Bethlehem is not some distant mystical land. It is literally just 5 miles south of Jerusalem.
5 miles.
It's a walking distance of maybe an hour or two. It is right in their backyard.
But they do absolutely nothing. I mean, how is it possible that the people who spent their entire lives memorizing these ancient texts, holding on to the promise of this exact moment, just sat this one out?
It's wild.
Meanwhile, you have these Gentile foreign astrologers who traveled vast, dangerous distances across deserts to do all the legwork.
It highlights a critical, deadly difference between possessing information and actually acting on it. The religious elites held the data, but they lacked the conviction.
Yeah.
Or more likely, they were just too comfortable in their political arrangements with Herod. You have to remember the psychology of living under an autocrat.
Right, because if you make a move...
Exactly. If you are a high-ranking Sadducee or scribe and you suddenly march off to Bethlehem to worship a rival king, Herod is going to execute you and your entire family.
Rocking the boat meant death.
Right. It was safer to give the paranoid king the geographic data and wash their hands of the situation.
That makes sense, but it brings up another question. let me push back on Herod's strategy here for a second. If Herod was so powerful, and he had the backing of the Roman military machine, why did he rely on these foreign astrologers?
Yeah.
Like, why didn't he just send a cohort of soldiers down to Bethlehem 5 miles away and tear the town apart? Where are his own spies?
It's a brilliant question, and it goes right to the heart of his political cunning. Herod is trying to keep this off the books.
Oh.
If he sends a detachment of Roman or Herodian soldiers into the city of David to explicitly hunt down the prophesied Messiah, he risks sparking an outright religious revolt in Judea.
Right, so he needs it to be quiet.
He needs this to be a stealth assassination, a black ops.
So he pulls the Magi aside secretly.
Yes. He tells the Magi, "Go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me so that I too may go and worship him."
Just a total lie.
It is pure political deception. He is trying to turn these elite foreign dignitaries into his own personal, unwitting reconnaissance team. He figures they can identify the specific house and the specific child without raising the alarm, and then he can send an assassin in the night.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because Herod's secret plot completely falls apart, and the narrative violently shifts gears.
Yes, it does.
We go from this tense political intrigue in the marble halls of power straight into a desperate, harrowing race for survival.
The turning point hinges on divine intervention through dreams, which the text emphasizes heavily. The Magi are warned in a dream not to go back to Herod.
Right.
So understanding the danger they're in, they change their route and bypass Jerusalem entirely on their journey home, slipping out of his jurisdiction.
And then in Matthew 2.13, an angel appears to Joseph in a dream with a terrifying message. The text says, "Get up, take the child and his mother, and escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child to kill him." They have to flee in the dead of night.
It's incredibly urgent.
Think about the logistics of that for a second. You are waking up your family in the dark, packing whatever you can carry, and walking out into the desert. This completely destroys any fairy tale aspect of the story you might still be holding on to.
Absolutely.
This is a gritty refugee survival story. You have a vulnerable family escaping a ruthless power vacuum, leaving everything behind with zero notice, heading for a foreign country.
And that specific destination, Egypt, is deeply significant when you look at the historical and theological mechanisms at play.
How so?
Matthew is very intentionally mirroring Israel's ancient history. Going down to Egypt connects the narrative directly back to the Exodus.
Oh, wow.
The text explicitly cites the ancient prophet Hosea, chapter 11, verse 1. "Out of Egypt I called my son." The survival of this child through the wilderness echoes the early trials of the Israelite people.
So it's not just random.
Not at all. The text is positioning this family's terrifying refugee experience not as a random tragedy, but as the continuation and ultimate fulfillment of a much older, deeper historical struggle.
But the tragedy back home is that while the target escaped, the tyrant's rage did not. When we hit Matthew 2.1 suite, we see the absolute horrifying climax of Herod's reign.
Yes.
He realizes the Magi have outsmarted him, and in a fit of absolute furious rage, he calculates the timeline based on when the star first appeared, and he orders the mass execution of all boys 2 years old and under in Bethlehem and its vicinity.
It is an atrocity born purely out of a desperate need to hold on to temporary power. The cold calculus of the tyrant is on full display here.
Yeah.
He casts a wide net to ensure the one threat is eliminated. And again, the historical record anchors this horrific event in ancient trauma. The text states that this fulfills the lament of Jeremiah 31.155, mind of Rachel weeping for her children and refusing to be comforted.
Just devastating.
It is a sobering, brutal acknowledgement of the collateral damage caused by paranoid rulers. In the math of maintaining a throne, innocent lives are entirely expendable.
It proves that the terror the citizens of Jerusalem felt back in verse 3 was completely justified. They knew this was exactly the kind of thing he was capable of.
Exactly.
Mask of the great temple builder slipped completely, and the ruthless, bloodthirsty dictator was fully exposed.
He removed any doubt about who he really was.
Now, the Holy Family remains in Egypt as refugees until Herod the Great finally dies, and you would think that's the end of the tension, right?
You'd hope so.
The bad guy is dead, they can go home. But the danger doesn't just magically evaporate. The political tension of the Roman world is still actively dictating their daily lives.
Because tyrannical regimes rarely die with the tyrant, they often leave behind incredibly toxic legacies. When Herod the Great dies, Rome steps in and fragments his kingdom. His territory is divided among his surviving sons. And the son, who takes over the region of Judea, which is where Bethlehem and Jerusalem are located, is a man named Archelaus.
And Archelaus is apparently a chip off the old block. I know history paints him as incredibly brutal.
Brutal is almost an understatement. Archelaus was ruling with extreme violence right out of the gate. Historical records tell us that he actually slaughtered 3,000 people in the temple precincts during Passover just to crush a minor rebellion early in his reign.
3,000 people?
Yes. He was so unstable and cruel that even the Romans eventually had to remove him from power. So imagine you are Joseph. You are leading your family back from Egypt. You hear that Archelaus is on the throne in Judea, and you realize that returning to your hometown is practically a death sentence.
The physical geography of their lives is literally being redrawn by the volatility of geopolitical borders and bad rulers. So they have to make one final critical pivot. Joseph diverts the family away from Judea entirely. They travel north and settle in the region of Galilee, specifically in a small, obscure town called Nazareth.
Right.
This area was under the rule of the different son, Herod Antipas, who was slightly less volatile at the time.
Which might seem like just a historical footnote, a family relocating to a different province for safety.
Sure.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, it is incredibly profound for the rest of the narrative.
So what does this all mean for the story going forward?
Well, it sets the stage for everything that follows in the historical texts. Galilee was known as a Gentile-heavy region. It was a crossroads of cultures, heavily influenced by Greek and Roman trade routes.
Oh?
Because of this, it was often looked down upon by the religious elites in Jerusalem. They viewed Galileans as being somewhat impure, uneducated, or unsophisticated.
Just kind of backwards.
Exactly. So by being forced out of the prestigious, religiously central region of Judea and into the margins of Galilee, the narrative perfectly foreshadows the universal, inclusive mission of Jesus' future ministry.
Oh, wow.
The prophesied king of the Jews ends up growing up in a diverse, marginalized, blue-collar region rather than walking the marble halls of power in the capital.
That is amazing. The very political machinations that tried to destroy him ended up positioning him perfectly for his ultimate purpose.
Right.
It is wild how you can read this familiar story 100 times and miss the fact that their daily survival, their travel routes to Egypt, and their permanent address in Nazareth were all dictated by the paranoid actions of a dictator and his violent successors.
It completely reframes the narrative. It's not a story of passive peace. It's a story of active, dangerous survival in the face of absolute earthly power.
And that leads me to a final thought I really want to leave you, our listener, to mull over. When you look at this historical record, the ultimate contrast isn't just between the different geographical locations. It is a contrast between two completely different concepts of power.
Yeah.
On one side, you have King Herod, a deeply paranoid man who has all the wealth, all the armies, the massive fortresses, and the backing of the Roman Empire. And he resorts to the slaughter of innocents just to hold on to his temporary worldly throne.
Right.
But on the other side, you have a vulnerable refugee child, born in a marginalized town, fleeing in the night with nothing, who survives to establish a legacy that outlasts the Roman Empire itself. So which kind of power ultimately lasted?
Yeah.
It really makes you rethink what true strength actually looks like in the vast scope of human history.
It is a contrast that challenges everything we assume about how history is made.
Now, before we sign off, we really want to hear from you. Seriously, drop a comment down below with your thoughts on today's intense historical drama. I mean, did the sheer political tension of this Roman era surprise you?
Yeah, we'd love to know.
Were you shocked by the apathy of those religious elites who just, stayed home?
Yeah.
Or how a tyrant's paranoia literally drove the entire geography of this survival story? Let us know down in the comments because we read every single one.
We do. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the raw historical realities behind the texts, please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss an exploration.
Also, do not forget to check the description below. We've dropped some exclusive links down there for you to explore more of the source materials. And we have our own research notes on the Roman client king system that you definitely want to click on.
Absolutely check those out.
And finally, I'm just going to tease this right now. If you thought today's dive into ancient power vacuums and midnight escapes was intense, our next deep dive is going to be even more intense.
Oh, yeah, it is.
You really won't want to miss it.
We'll see then.
So next time you see one of those peaceful little holiday snow globes, just remember what happened when the glass shattered and the gritty, raw history spilled out. Thanks for listening and keep diving deep.